Hello there, welcome to another JNJtabletop video. We have another episode of MellieBell Picks a Spell. I love that because it rhymes. And this is just another episode where we're going to go over some things that, as a Divine Soul Sorcerer, there's just so many choices. Like, so many choices. And if you're going to use the class as is, there's not a lot of there's so many choices, but you only get to pick a few of them. And so the Sorcerer is a class that's actually near and dear to our heart here. And we have expanded spell lists, which is exactly why Josh is kind of just pumping Mellie with some stuff here. And you've reached level 4 spells. I was out of town, that's why we didn't do an episode then. But yeah, you picked up Death Ward, if I'm not mistaken, which is extremely Mellie, as well as you retrained something for Mage Armor.
Yes.
Because Mellie's armor class is like 11, so she's like, I need to have a little protection here.
Yeah, I would feel bad because like Josh would roll something and he'd be like, "Oh, it's a 13," and I'd be like, "Ah, she gets hit," and then he'd be like,
every time.
Okay.
Yeah, every time. But yeah, the expanded spell list, like I said, we made the video. We also just things that are going on at J&J. Because of the Feywild stuff, I created a homebrew Fey Magic Sorcerer, and I would encourage you to check that out, whether it's on D&D Beyond, DM's Guild, I always forget the name, and, the video here on the things and stuff. But yeah, Mellie is easy to hit. I was just like, if ever there was like a PvP, like Vale has a +10 to attack with his bow, so literally only a natural one would miss if they did fight. But that's also because ranged gets favored with the ranged fighting style. But we're not here to talk about Vale. We're here to talk about Mellie. So why don't we switch on over to the info screen here. Let's see what we have up. Wizards, yeah. Casters, oh, we have Guiding Bolt up there. So that's one of the things that Mellie got, right? So he got a Staff of Frost, which has a whole bunch of attack options, which is something that Mellie usually shied away from, but now she's got it if the situation calls for it. But there also are some utility spells in there, which I like. But using those expanded spell lists, Josh, I thought, presented a very interesting situation for Mellie, right? So she kind of had like a trial of sorts, if you will. She met the goddess Ray. I think that's how you pronounce it. And Ray tested Mellie, presenting a few different situations, and based on the answers that you gave, determined the spells that you were going to get. I kind of knew this was coming because Josh and I often talk about stuff, so every once in a while I do have some inside information. But yeah, I thought that was a really creative thing, and one of the spells Mellie got was Guiding Bolt, which we have on screen right now.
Yeah, I am super excited to use this because it's one of those things that she can do damage and then also assist with everyone else doing damage, which I think is very Mellie. Like she'll do what's Absolutely. That she'll do the cantrip Sacred Flame, like if she doesn't really have anything else and everyone's pretty good on health.
Yeah.
But this is gonna be, I think, one of the things she does a lot as well, just because it has dual purpose.
It sure does. And I mean, a 4d6 radiant damage on a hit, that's solid. On top of the next person that attacks that target now has advantage, which we have a rogue in our party. That is huge. If Mac is ever isolated or there's something, I mean, he's always slippery, he can get away because he's got a million ways to move around the field. But if, say, there's an opponent that's isolated and you want to, and Michael is going to have Mac go after that guy, you can make sure you can get that sneak attack in, which is, I mean, sneak attack is everything for the rogue. That's what their effectiveness is in, and Guiding Bolt is fantastic. Plus, you could twin that which could be really, really fun. But yeah, so after Guiding Bolt, you also got Calm Emotions, which, if you've watched any previous episodes, I believe you were excited about Calm Emotions in the past.
Yeah, it's one of those, not necessarily in the heat of the moment something she would use, but something that I wish Mellie had in the past, but we took it for other things just because something else seemed more important at the time. But it's just something I'm excited to see how it gets used, you know, especially not in battle scenarios, because I definitely think it'll help, you know, if you're going to talk to Queen, and maybe
Or even just each other, where we're at right now. Mac and Vale had definitely had some words. I love the dynamic between that, because I think there are things on the surface that are obvious, whether you're looking at Mac or Vale, but I think there's also things underneath all of it fueling it, and it on the surface it looks like the opposite. I love the subtleties that our group kind of gets into. I get excited about just from a role playing standpoint. But yeah, Calm Emotions, you could, if Mellie is just like, no, we're not fighting, she could just basically drop this in the middle of it, of a combat. Like, if, say, Vale does something stupid, not that he's ever done that before, whatever the case may be, and you don't like the outcome, Mellie can now potentially just say, no, that's not happening. It's really kind of awesome. Yeah. And then the next spell you got, the level 3 spell, was Spirit Guardians, which, this is one of my favorite spells in the game, because this is a passive one. It is a concentration spell, so I know Mellie likes to do her bless, but I think there certainly are situations where this would be really, really, really useful. So if you're not familiar with this, centered on Mellie, there's a 15-foot radius sphere where these spirits just flutter around her, and anything that starts its turn there has to make a wisdom saving throw or take 3d8 radiant, definitely for Mellie, radiant damage. Half as much as not. So she's just becomes this like zone of like, I'm just gonna chew up enemies that come near me, which is awesome. What do you think about that?
Yeah, another one that I'm also excited to use if the opportunity presents itself. Because as great of a spell as it is, I can't see Mellie taking this over Bless in most situations, just because this is something that, while it does like help the whole group because it's dealing damage, it's centered around her. So she's gonna view it as like, this is protection for myself, not for everyone else. So most of the time she'll still do Blast, but I could definitely see her using it if like we're trying to just do like a mad dash through enemies, because you can choose who's considered a hostile and who is not.
Absolutely.
So if we wanted to, we could just like everybody scoot in and then just run.
Tight formation, flying V like the Mighty Ducks. Here we go. Yeah, that is a good point. And she is almost always in the back. Usually Vale and Mellie are kind of the back line. Well, sometimes Vale moves into the front or whatever, depending on the situation. But this gives you more options and versatility. And with mage armor, I mean, now you're like a tank, right? You can move up front and just get all nasty and in the enemy's business. But again, if the situation would call for it or it makes sense, now you can do this, which I think is amazing. And then let's see things. Oh, you know what? This is something that a lot of people get a chance to describe. What do you think Mellie's Spirit Guardians would look like?
So definitely cows, but very
Oh, yes.
round. Like they're too round to
Mhm.
actually be a cow, and they just have like little stick,
Okay.
like little stick legs.
Yes.
And I guess like they would have little horns because
Wow.
cows have horns, and that's how they would attack people.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. So, do they make a sound? I mean, is it just a whole bunch of like moos? Like
Yep.
these cows moo and move with Melly. And I was gonna ask you what they smell like, but I don't know if that. I don't know if we want to go there with cows.
So actually, I don't think they would smell. I don't think they would smell bad because they are little spirits, right? So
Yeah.
it would probably just be like when they ram into someone, there's like a little puff of like plum perfume.
So they fart plum perfume? Is that what you're trying to say? Oh my gosh. This is amazing. All right, so that's the image, and I hope there's a moment. Wow, I really hope there's a moment in the game where Melly can break them out, because this is gonna be great. Um, but in addition to the spells that Melly got on stream that Josh announced, he also, because the expanded spell list is 2 spells per spell level, he also got Protection from Evil and Good, which has made an appearance before. I know Vale has cast it on Echo, actually, when they fought the Hag. So that's very, very nice. It protects you from certain status effects, but also certain types of creatures just have disadvantage to attack you. So even though this is a concentration spell, if one person is in a plan is in a particularly dangerous spot, or you're going up against undead or fiends or whatever the case may be, this could be an option, because both Vale and Melly could say, Mech, Echo, you guys go, you're fine. And that could be really fun. But also, I don't know if you've looked into this too much, but it's got clairvoyance.
Yeah, this one I'm not as familiar with. So
It takes 10 minutes to cast, so this is not something that you would use in combat, but this is one of the classic divination spells that lets you, let's see, so it has a 1 mile range, so you create an invisible sensor in a location that's familiar to you, basically a place that you've been or seen before, in an obvious location that is, or in an obvious location that is unfamiliar to you, such as behind a door, around a corner. So like say for example, if we're nervous about opening a door, we're like, I don't know what's on the other side of that door. You can do this and look beyond it. Or
that's
if
too
you want to
cool.
spy on something, somebody, so there's a meeting going on, whatever the case may be, you're going to be able to have something watching or listening in, which is, I love these kinds of utility spells because they have a way, just like Riku mentioned in chat, like it's very situational, but when the time is right, it's like, holy cow, that changes the dynamic of the situation entirely. Kind of almost like sending does. There's a lot of spells in the game have very like obvious uses, like, oh, this deals 4d6 damage and gives advantage to somebody. True, but this lets us know what's going on. This helps us make better decisions. So it's like, it's kind of interesting in that way.
Yeah, I have already thought of multiple situations in the past where this would have been very useful. Obviously, we had other ways to circumvent some things, but this is a great utility spell. And I feel like if Melly could learn how to read lips, that could be very useful.
That's true. Actually, though, there is, well, you're getting ahead of me a little bit, but you went there. You're about to become level 8. And you could take the Observant feat, if that was something that was interesting to you, which also bumps up your passive perception and
Ah.
investigation by +5. Yeah. Plus, you'd be able to read lips. So, yes, one really quick build I've always wanted to do would be a druid that has this, because they could wild shape into like a dog and just like run around town or whatever and just like watch someone. But they know how to read lips, they know what's going on. So,
That is very clever.
there's a lot of fun options. But we'll get into that maybe later on if everybody behaves themselves, mostly me. But there is one particular choice that Josh, as far as spells go, did put your way. And that's the choice between either taking Hold Person and Zone of Truth. So the reason why this one is a choice for you is because of the spell list that we have. As the expanded spell list, you have Hold Person is a lawful spell, Zone of Truth is a chaotic spell. A lot of people, I think, misunderstand chaos and all that stuff. And Mellie already had the neutral one, so as Mellie would normally get the neutral spell list and the good spell list because she's neutral good. But yeah, we've got Hold Person or Zone of Truth. So let's take a quick look at them, and then we'll see what your thoughts are, because I'm sure you've thought about it a little bit, but I know sometimes you like to just sit on this decision till the end. But it's a 2nd level spell. It takes an action, and it is concentration. Choose a humanoid that you can see within range, 60 feet. That target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be paralyzed for the duration, which is a minute. At the end of each of its turns, the target can make another wisdom saving throw, and on a success, the spell ends. And if we're not sure what the paralyzed condition does, it says a paralyzed creature is incapacitated and can't move or speak. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws, and attack rolls against the creature have advantage. Any attack that hits the creature is a critical hit if the attacker is within 5 feet of the creature. So just for argument's sake, if a single target was held for 1 turn, and Echo did his Flurry of Blows, that's 4 critical hits right there. Mac could get a critical hit, and if Vale went up and did melee, he could potentially get 4 if he action surged. So this has the potential to incredibly ramp up the amount of damage that you could do. Plus, it's also kind of like a suppressive spell. I'm gonna prevent combat if you wanted to. Like, it could be a support, and it also could be like, I'm gonna neutralize this threat, and we're gonna walk away, or whatever the case may be, whatever your goals are. And Nia does bring up a good point. It is a humanoid. There are more powerful options later on, like Hold Monster, but this is a level 2 spell. Then we have Zone of Truth, the other 2nd level spell. It's also casting time is 1 action, and it lasts for 10 minutes. You create a magical zone that guards against deception in a 15-foot radius sphere. So, basically a 6x6 grid if you're looking at it on a map. I know we tend to just make our spheres squares and cubes just because it's easier. And that's within 60 feet. Until the spell ends, a creature that enters the spell's area for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there must make a charisma saving throw. On a failed save, a creature can't speak a deliberate lie while within that radius. You know whether each creature has succeeded or fails in the saving throw. An affected creature is aware of the spell and can thus avoid answering questions to which it would normally respond with a lie. So, you could be evasive with it, but you can't out and out say something that's not true. Which obviously has much more roleplay and utility options here. So what are your thoughts with these two?
I do like the idea of having Zone of Truth, but I don't know, because I'm thinking like in terms of like role playing and the direction that we're headed as a group, I feel like it might be like very, very handy, especially considering the people that we're going to probably be talking to. We want to be able to know, are they lying to us or not? And it doesn't even have to be like, obviously after it gets cast, the person knows, but like it could be something that we all agree upon. That way we all can for sure not lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 10-minute spell too, so there's a ton of ton of length. And I know Nia says it's cool, but you can just stay quiet. That's true, but it's also one of those things like we can do this because we're very far beyond this point. So let's, like, when Vale and Mac were trying to convince Melly and Echo to go underwater, it ended up coming out. Vale ended up eventually coming out with everything. Mac said, "No, I didn't know. I didn't know about it." So if for example, and a Zone of Truth came out, and you were to ask him, and then he's just not answering, that's like, yes, he could stay quiet. Yes, he doesn't have to lie. But if he doesn't say anything, that's also pretty shady. Like, it's just an example. But like, you could kind of figure out, like, specific stuff is maybe more difficult, but you could narrow it down and be like, all right, I know what happened here. So it is kind of
makes sense in certain situations. Like, so in my mind, I'm thinking, if I had this when we first had the discussion with the Queen, I don't know if she would have agreed to it, but we could have been like, all right, we all want to be transparent here. We're going to do Zone of Truth, and then none of us are going to lie. And that's just how it's going to be. And we can all choose to fail, I think, right? That's part of it.
I see no reason why I see no reason why you couldn't.
So, and I mean, this is, who knows how many people we might have to have serious discussions with. So this could be something that works really well in terms of like our role-playing aspect. But hold person it's just, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, there's a guard that saw us, hold person, and then he dies.
Our group can deal out a lot of damage, and it is a save or suck spell. So like, if they happen to make their saving throw, well, okay. Like Nia said, it is a humanoid, so does have to be a person.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the right situation, that can be like, you know what? We're just gonna hold you because we're gonna sneak past you for whatever we have to do, or whatever. And it's a non-violent solution too, if you desire it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a clear-cut, like, right choice here. You pick, what feels like Melly, what feels like it would be fun for you. Because I think Melly would be fine either way in this one. I don't know if you feel that way or not. Like,
yeah, a lot of times with a lot of the choices, it's been very apparent to me, like, okay, like this, based off of everything that's been going on, is definitely how Melly would want to, like, take her path and what she's learning and what she would seek out. But in this situation, I feel like it's kind of a toss-up.
yeah, like, it's nothing is like, oh, that's so Melly, or oh, Melly would never do that. It's just kind of like, these are the spells.
Mm-hmm.
What sounds more fun to you on just a gut level?
Honestly, I'm gonna say Zone of Truth, just because
you said honestly, so it had to be Zone of Truth, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know I don't need to say the modifier there, but the other thing is that I like that it uses charisma instead of wisdom, because Melly's charisma is like real high up there.
Charisma's often a dump stat too, so there's a lot of creatures and enemies that don't. Charisma's just not as strong.
Yeah, so definitely leaning more towards Zone of Truth, especially with a lot of the inter-party conflict that we have going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we would use it,
It'd be so
but
funny if you're like, all right, let's just get to the bottom of this. I'm gonna do this. You're all gonna choose to fail. We're just gonna get it out. Let's talk.
which I feel like that is a Melly thing
Okay.
to do. But we'll see. We'll have to see. I'll keep everyone in anticipation.
Okay, so maybe it's MellieBell chooses a meta magic then instead of choosing a spell. Because Josh said you also get to choose a meta magic, which is what? This is fantastic. So we got those ready to go here. So Mellie already has what she has: Twinned and Quicken.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Those are my two favorites, by the way. So Careful Spell, that's one, like if you were going to say do like your Cone of Cold out of your Staff of Frost, you could spend a sorcery point and then choose a number of creatures up to your charisma modifier. You could pick 5 and just, okay, you succeed on this. It's not a thing. They would still take damage because you take half damage on a success. But yeah. Then you've got Distance Spell. So when you cast a spell that has a range of 5 feet or greater, you could spend 1 sorcery point to double the range of the spell. And when you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you could spend the sorcery point to make the range of the spell 30 feet. So you could cast Cure Wounds from 30 feet away. If, Echo is up, like, so when the dragon flew up high, he was like 100 and some odd feet off the ground. Healing Word wouldn't have even reached him. But if you double that to 120 feet, now all of a sudden that's in play when it isn't normally in play. And yes, Nia, meta magic is specific to sorcerers. We have Empowered Spell. That's when you roll damage for a spell, you can spend a sorcery point and re-roll a number of damage dice up to your charisma modifier, and then you use those new rolls. So like when Vale did the special arrow, I know he rolled like one good one and everything else was a 1 or a 2, and I was like, dang it, like this was like our special thing we had for this dragon. It ended up not mattering, but still, in that situation when it really sucks, you can be like, oh, I'm totally gonna re-roll those because that could come in handy. Extended Spell, which I think can be interesting with Mage Armor and Aid, I think are the two biggest candidates here. When you cast a spell that has a duration of 1 minute or longer, you can spend a sorcery point to double its duration up to a maximum of 24 hours. So Aid and Mage Armor both last 8 hours, so you could make this a 16-hour, like, hey, just get up in the day, like taking your medicine, your vitamins, you put on your Mage Armor, you're casting your Aid, and then you're making it last the entire day. Or the night before you can do this. Take your long rest, and then you wake up with 8 hours, and you're full on your meta magic and your spell slots. So there's some really interesting things you could do with Extended Spell. Particularly those. You look like, I have to say, you look like the gears are churning here.
Well, so I do like the what's the one that extends it, but not the time. What's the one that makes it go further?
Distant.
I do like that one because it is so frustrating to be like, oh, like it's 5 feet out of range. But I think in terms of preventative like I feel like preventing the damage and like having the points already there, I think that makes a bigger difference rather than changing the distance.
This also would apply to attack spells, your guiding bolts, things like that too. It's any spell. So that's another thing. But yeah, distant and extended. Those are the two that I was like, I feel like Izzy's going to be most interested in those, but there are some others. Heightened Spell. not a big fan of this one, but it can have its uses. When you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw to resist its effects, you can spend 3 sorcery points to give one target of the spell disadvantage on its first saving throw against it. I just think 3 sorcery points for that one moment. That better be a heck of a moment. And even then, it's disadvantage. They still might succeed. I don't know. That would make me feel like, ugh, I just wasted half of my sorcery points. But in the right moment, that could be one of the most clutch things that there is. And then you have Subtle Spell. When you cast a spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to cast it without somatic or verbal components. So basically, you just like look at someone, and that's it. Like you could just like look at someone and healing word them, or like you don't have to say or move or do anything. If it's still a touch spell, you have to touch it. But so that's a very interesting, a little more RP centric. So maybe, you know what? This would be one that could pair very nicely with Zone of Truth. Because maybe we're visiting the queen, and that's probably pretty rude to ask a queen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like,
Yep.
if you just can do it, I don't know if there's a visual effect to the Zone of Truth or however that may go. That might be something you discuss with Josh. But that could be one that's, you want to cast, you don't have Charm Person, but that's the one I usually think of. Like, I could just charm them and they don't even, there's no visual cues about it at all. Since it's Subtle Spell, I would say that would probably also keep it hidden because that's the whole point of the spell.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're a prisoner and your hands are bound and you're gagged, you don't have to do anything. You could just cast a spell. So, some interesting thoughts there. But now we also have the options in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Oh, you have something to say?
No, I was emphasizing your butt. Sorry.
but we've got 2 more. We've got Seeking Spell and Transmuted Spell. In Seeking Spell, if you make an attack roll for a spell and miss, you can spend 2 sorcery points to re-roll the d20, and then you must use the new roll. You can use Seeking Spell even if you've already used a different metamagic option during the casting of a spell. Normally, you can only use 1 at a time. This one, it doesn't matter. So this would be like, oh crap, I missed my Guiding Bolt. It was really important that I give Mac disadvantage on that attack, or give him advantage on that attack for his sneak attack, so I want to make sure that hits. Or whatever. Then you've also got Transmuted Spell. When you cast a spell that deals a type of damage from the following list, you can spend 1 sorcery point to change that damage type to one of the other listed types. And this is elemental stuff, which acid, cold, fire, light, poison, or thunder. Maybe instead of a cone of cold, you're going up against frost giants and you're like, I want a cone of fire. That's just 1 sorcery point to switch it, which could be very useful in the right situation. Maybe an enemy is resistant to cold or vulnerable to poison, whatever the case may be. This is gonna let you tinker with some stuff. So there's a lot on the table.
I do like that idea of being able to change the damage type, because it like, obviously Mellie, her whole like theme is frost and ice and cold, and then we fought a white dragon who that's kind of their thing too.
Yep.
Not that Mellie hit the dragon at all, but if
she kept Echo alive, so that was kind of important.
But if she had needed to, this would have been a very helpful meta magic to have. Oh boy.
So have you narrowed the list to anything?
Yeah, so the 3 that definitely Transmuted Spell, and then the other 2 from the other list that you had said that you thought I would be most interested in, which my short-term memory is not good.
Distant and Extended. When it comes down to distant makes you more able to do the things you want to do in more situations. Or able in more situations. Extended can let you, is more like resource conservation, right? Because you might be able to spend that one sorcery point instead of another whole spell slot on it, which I think particularly with aid, because it's a bigger spell slot than mage armor, that would be really nice. And then transmuted, it's that I just keep this in my back pocket to make sure if I need to switch the damage type. I feel like that probably wouldn't be used as often.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Because I can't think. I'm trying to remember the last time Melly used. What in the why can't I remember the name of anything? Ray of Frost to attack someone.
I want to say maybe the bridge fight, because I think you were out of slots for a little bit there, and so you're up on the top shooting rays of frost at people.
Yeah, and that was feels like a real long time ago.
I mean, in real time, it was maybe February.
Yeah,
Back
so
then.
I don't know how useful the transmuted spells would be. So my only question would be, if I used the extended spell, can you use 2 types of meta magic on one spell?
Not unless it says you can. So if you look at empowered spell, it says you can use empowered spell even if you've already used a different meta magic, and the same was true of seeking spell. Those are the only 2 that lets you do that. So I think I know where you're going with this, but for the folks at home, what makes you ask that?
So if I could twin and extend like mage armor, then I could give mage armor to both Melly and Mac, and also do aid. And then that's like just covering more people. But if I can't twin meta, like I still think I'm still like 90% sure for the extended spell, just because it just makes sense. Like, yeah, just everybody goes to bed, they take their vitamins, just like you said. That's just
right.
Everybody gets topped off right at the end with those extra points. And then also, you never know when you're going to be going to bed, and then something's going to wake you up. And then it's like, oh, well, not only do I not like have my armor on, but I don't have like anything prepared and I haven't recovered all the way.
That's another really, really good point. So I definitely think extended would probably get the most mileage if that's where you're going. If you're going to get another option at level 10, just that's when sorcerers get that. So it's obviously you want to make all your choices good ones. But maybe if you're like, I'm really on the fence with these 2, like you can get the other one at level 10. And then also, we alluded to it a little earlier when we were talking about the ability score improvement at level 8. You can take Meta Magic Adept as an option, which would give you 2 more Meta Magics that you could choose, as well as 2 more sorcery points that you would have. So instead of having 8 sorcery points, you would have 10. Those 2 have to be used on Meta Magic, like you can't convert them to spell slots for things, but Quicken Spell, that I know you like your Quicken Spell, and I love that you like it. Anytime you can play with the action economy, I get excited.
Yeah, that's been, I think it's the one that I've used the most, or maybe I've used both of them equally, but it makes it so much easier to be able to, heal someone with a bonus action at a distance, and then be able to get an attack off or protect myself or something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm definitely down with picking the extended spell for the meta magic, just because I feel like that's the thing that Mellie would go for.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's a role-playing game. So I think that's a fantastic choice. So do you want to at all revisit Zone of Truth and Hold Person, or you're not?
I'll
You're
tell
not
you a
quite there.
secret. We're gonna go with Zone of Truth.
Ooh, Zone of Truth. There it is. That does feel like Mellie, right?
Yeah.
It does seem like something she would be. Yeah. Oh man, we could have some interesting role-playing moments coming up ahead.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. The role-playing is definitely one of my big reasons for wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, I think you made some really fun choices there.
Yeah, I'm excited to use the new stuff. I was not at all expecting all of this stuff, which makes it, like I said, kind of like Christmas, because it's like,
Yeah.
you never know what you're getting.
It is. It's really fun. I know, because Josh and I have had many conversations about this, and we have focused a lot of our attention on the sorcerer because I know that you have looked at so many choices throughout all of these. Well, these shows that we've done, and it's like agonizing. And like, not only do you have the sorcerer spell list as a divine soul sorcerer, you also have the cleric spell list. So it's kind of like this. Like I want to do this thing, but I can't because the mechanics are restrictive there. And this is just a few more options. It's not. There's nothing game breaking here. The sorcerer is special. You don't get to prepare spells like a wizard or a cleric. Like, you still only know the spells you know. It's just you just know a little bit more than before, and I think that's the way it should be. So, very cool. I got some fun stuff calling Josh as Santa in chat. Skelly, ho ho, how would you like to do this? I love that, Skelly. Oh boy. Well, if you are watching this and you haven't followed the Twitch channel, go ahead and do that. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, you should definitely do that. If you're watching live, Command J&J as our link tree, all the stuff. Give us a thumbs up and hit the bell. Hit every button that you see. If it gives you an option, just do all the things. That's kind of the way it is. Just push the buttons. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. And we definitely need the Cow Guardians. Guardians of the Cowlexy? Is that is that where we're going with this?
I love it.
I feel like the cows, instead of hitting them with their horns, should just lick them, and it's like acid damage or something. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it's like a cowlick, so all of their
hair is just all messy.
Yes. Oh, this is devolved. Maybe this is the outro. I don't know.